Let's be honest for a second. God wanted it. That might be one of the easiest answers a human being can give. It requires no research, no uncertainty, no further thinking. Case closed. Why did the earthquake happen? God's will. Why did that child get sick? There must be a reason. Why is the universe designed this way? Divine plan. And just like that, we feel calmer. But here's the real question. Does feeling calmer mean we understood anything? Or have we simply learned how to protect ourselves from complexity with a ready made answer? It may sound harsh, but we need to ask it. Has God often become the easiest answer to the hardest questions? The human mind hates uncertainty, it hates not knowing. So when the world becomes complicated, it looks for something fast. One explanation that covers everything. One final answer. One clean ending. But final answers are not always the deepest answers. Tonight, we are not here to mock anyone's faith. We are not here to attack emotions. We are here to examine a mental mechanism. Why, when facing complexity, do we so often choose the fastest route? And if necessary, ask ourselves, are we really understanding? Or are we just soothing ourselves? The hardest part is not ignorance, it's admitting ignorance. Sometimes the hardest thing in life is not finding answers. It's admitting we don't have one yet. The human brain dislikes uncertainty because uncertainty creates anxiety. And anxiety is something the mind naturally wants to escape. So when we face something complex, we feel an internal pressure. Find an explanation quickly, even if that explanation oversimplifies reality. That tendency has followed humanity for centuries. Whenever people encountered something they could not explain, there was often one familiar answer waiting: God. Thunder, God. Disease, God. Victory in war, God's favor. Defeat, God's test. Disaster, God's plan. This answer has enormous physical power. It's fast, low cost, emotionally comforting, and it frees the mind from having to keep digging. When an answer stops questions, we should ask something uncomfortable here. Has God, in many situations, become a stopping point from thought? When a child asks why the sky is blue and hears because God made it that way, curiosity can die right here. When someone asks why tragedy happened and hears divine wisdom, the investigation often ends. That matters because if an answer consistently shuts down further questions, we should ask whether it is truly an explanation or an escape from one. The God of Gaps problem. There is a famous philosophical idea often called God of Gaps. It means placing God inside whatever part of reality we do not yet understand. We don't know how something works. Put God here. We don't understand consciousness. Put God here. We do not understand the origin of universe. Put God here too. The issue is not personal belief. The issue is that mystery itself can become evidence by default. And history shows what happens next. As knowledge grows, the gaps shrink again and again and again. Science began with a different sentence. If ancient people had been fully satisfied with God wanted it, many discoveries would never have happened. Science began where people dared to say, I don't know, but I want to find out. That sentence is less comforting that God did it, but it is often more honest. And honesty has moved civilization forward more than certainty ever did. Lightning stopped being a divine anger. Disease stopped being punishment. Planetary motion stopped being a sacred mystery. Progress often begins the moment we refused the first easy answer. The mind loves simplify. This does not automatically mean people are foolish. It means people are human. The brain is built to detect patterns, assign causes, and build stories, sometimes even where no clear agent exists. When random events happen, we instinctively search for meaning. If the natural explanation is difficult, invisible, or technical, a supernatural explanation can feel easier. Not because it is true, because it is physiologically efficient. Cognitive laziness isn't about intelligence. Let's define something carefully. Mental laziness does not mean stupidity. Often it means choosing the lowest effort explanation over the highest effort understanding. It means preferring certainty over investigation, comfort over complexity, closure over curiosity, and sometimes God plays exactly that role, a total answer that explains everything without needing to explain anything especially. But the answers that explain everything often explain nothing in detail. What did we actually learn? If I say God created the universe, what exactly did we learn? How did it happen? Why these physical laws? Why this much suffering? Why this level of chaos and injustice? If the response becomes His wisdom is beyond us, then we should ask, did we explain something? Or merely place a label in our ignorance? Why I don't know is so difficult. Saying I don't know sounds simple, but physiologically it's expensive. The mind wants to feel complete. It wants reality to feel manageable. And God often offers exactly that, a finished story, a stable framework, a sense that everything ultimately makes sense. That can be emotionally powerful. But emotional power is not the same thing as truth. Comfort is not proof. A belief can reduce anxiety and still be false. A belief can soothe grief and still fail as explanation. A belief can organize life beautifully and still lack evidence. We understand this everywhere else. A frightened child may calm down if told an invisible protector is standing nearby. That comfort is real, but comfort does not create reality. So when someone says it was God's will after tragedy, the emotional function may be obvious, but analytically, what was clarified? When divine answers replace human responsibility, this issue is not only personal, it can become social. If a flood destroys a city and we say, oh, God wanted it, do we examine poor infrastructures, corruptions, climate conditions, bad planning, or do we surrender to the narrative and move on? When a culture repeatedly uses divine explanation for worldly problems, accountability can weaken. Because if everything is outside human control, where does responsibility go? Belief versus shortcut. We should be precise here. The problem is not that believers never think. Many deeply religious people think seriously and rigorously. The issue is something narrower. Using God as a shortcut, using belief to avoid investigation, using faith when a thoughtful analysis is required. Those are different things. A scientist may personally believe in God while still refusing easy answers in the lab. That distinction matters enormously. The last link in the chain. God is often introduced as the final explanation, the last answer behind all other answers. But final explanation only matters when they illuminate something. If we ask why the universe exists and here because God wanted it, we still face the same unanswered questions. How? Why this way? Why these rules? Why this suffering? If the response is again mystery, then perhaps we have not solved the puzzle. We have only renamed it. The pattern keeps repeating. Every time science explains one mystery, some people move God to the next unknown area. First storm, then disease, then planetary motion, then consciousness, then cosmic origins. The location changes, but the pattern stays the same, which raises a serious question. Are we discovering truth or rapidly filling gaps with familiar comfort? Sometimes the mind is not lazy, just afraid. We should be also compassionate. Sometimes people do not reach for the easy answers because they are careless. They reach for them because they are afraid. Afraid of meaninglessness, afraid of unanswered suffering, afraid of death without a final story, afraid of injustice without cosmic correction. God can calm those fears. That physiological road is real. But once again, calming fear is not the same as discovering truth. Maturity may begin with open questions. If truth genuinely matters, we must be willing to let some questions remain unanswered for a while. I don't know is not a failure. Sometimes it is maturity. Sometimes it is intellectual courage. Sometimes it is the beginning of discovery. Human progress may have been solved less by ignorance and more by satisfaction with easy answers. The real choice, maybe the deeper choice, is not belief versus unbelief. Maybe it is this: comfort or growth, immediately certainty or difficult understanding, ready made answers or honest inquiry. God may carry meaning for many people, but when God became the automatic answer to every complexity, we should pause and ask, are we understanding reality or simply claiming ourselves? Because if the goal is understanding, the road usually passes through doubt, uncertainty, humility, patience. But if the goal is comfort, the easiest answer will almost always win. Maybe the real problem is not that people believe. Maybe the problem begins with belief replaces the search itself. Saying, I don't know, is difficult, but growth often begins there, when we stay in uncertainty a little longer, when we resist the first easy answer, when we keep thinking after comfort is available. Perhaps the greatest courage is not believing and not rejecting, but continuing to think, even when a quick answer is waiting. Because if truth truly matters, it is worth the struggle. And never forget, nothing is more sacred than asking questions